The soft click of the door echoed in the quiet apartment. I paused, key in hand, glancing at the living room that looked deceptively normal. Sunlight spilled over the furniture, but something felt off, like the calm before a storm. My heart thumped with a mix of anticipation and dread. Isabella had been acting different lately. She was always organized, controlling in subtle ways that somehow made me follow her lead. But tonight, the look in her eyes when she answered my texts hinted at a plan I hadn't fully grasped. I slipped off my shoes, feeling the floor cool beneath my bare feet, and tried to ignore the uneasy thrill running through me. Isabella leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, her lips curling into a knowing smile. "You're home early," she said, her voice soft but commanding. There was a gleam in her eye I hadn't seen before. I swallowed, nodding. "Yeah, just finished work." My voice sounded small, timid, even to me. She gestured toward the living room. "Come sit." I obeyed, my pulse quickening. The apartment was spotless, every cushion fluffed, every surface gleaming. Not unusual for Isabella, but tonight, it felt like the calm before a transformation. She held up a small box. "Open it." Inside were delicate pieces of clothing, a fitted blouse, a skirt, and soft stockings. My stomach dropped. What is this?" I asked, trying to hide the tremor in my voice. Isabella's smile widened, and my anxiety twisted with an unexplainable thrill. "You've been so helpful around the house, but I think it's time to take your dedication to the next level," she said, her tone playful yet firm. "I want you to become my perfect maid." The words hung in the air, impossibly heavy. My mind raced. She meant crossdressing? The thought should have embarrassed me, but instead, I felt a strange flutter of curiosity and fear. A part of me had always wondered what it would feel like to dress like her imagined version of perfection, submissive, elegant, feminine, but now the reality pressed down on me like a tangible weight. Isabella's eyes softened slightly. "It's okay to feel nervous. I'll guide you. You'll learn, and by the end of tonight, you'll understand exactly what I want." She stepped closer, the smell of her perfume enveloping me. Warmth spread through my chest, but the knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. I glanced at the box again. The clothes were perfect, soft silk, modest yet flattering, everything Isabella seemed to consider essential for her version of perfect. My fingers brushed the fabric, feeling the unfamiliar texture. The blouse was smooth, the skirt light and flowing. Stockings that had always seemed so distant suddenly became a symbol of a role I didn't yet fully understand but was already starting to inhabit in my mind. "Start by changing," Isabella instructed, pointing to the bedroom. My legs felt like jelly. I nodded, taking tentative steps toward the door. Each step made the thrill and fear collide, like electricity running through my veins. Behind me, I heard her voice, soft but insistent, "Take your time. I want you to do this properly." The bedroom mirror reflected a version of me I barely recognized. My usual clothes, jeans and t-shirt, felt heavy, a weight I hadn't realized I carried. Slowly, I removed them, replaced them with the delicate blouse, skirt, and stockings. Every movement felt amplified, every brush of fabric against skin heightened my awareness. As I adjusted the blouse, I caught my reflection. The skirt swirled around my legs, soft against my thighs. My heart raced, a mix of embarrassment and exhilaration. I looked at the stockings, tugging them up carefully, feeling the smooth material hug my legs. Isabella's voice floated in from the doorway, "Perfect." I froze. That single word sent a shiver down my spine. It wasn't just approval, it was possession, control, desire. I had stepped into a role, into a new identity, and she was the one who held the map. The maid she imagined, the girl she wanted me to be, it wasn't just a fantasy anymore. Isabella stepped closer, hands gentle but deliberate as she adjusted the blouse at my shoulders, straightening the collar. "Hold still. Small details matter," she murmured. I obeyed, my breathing shallow, feeling more exposed than ever. But beneath the vulnerability was an undeniable thrill. I was stepping into her world, and with each adjustment, I could feel myself changing, not just in clothes, but in posture, in demeanor, in the way I carried myself. By the time she stepped back, the room seemed transformed. The soft lighting, the gleaming floors, and the sight of me in the delicate ensemble made everything feel charged, suspended between play and reality. Isabella's eyes glittered. "Now, show me your first tasks." My pulse quickened. I nodded, knowing the night ahead would be a test, a transformation, and a journey I hadn't expected, but somehow, I couldn't wait to see it through. The story had begun, and there was no turning back. The first task Isabella assigned seemed deceptively simple, cleaning the living room. But the moment I stepped in, every detail felt magnified. My heels clicked against the hardwood floor, echoing in the quiet apartment, and I became acutely aware of the sway in my hips, the delicate way the skirt brushed my thighs with each step. "Start with dusting," she instructed, handing me a soft cloth. "But remember, elegance matters." I froze. Elegance? Even cleaning? My hands trembled as I reached for the dusting brush. The soft brush felt foreign, awkward in my manicured fingers. Isabella observed from the corner of the room, her eyes sharp yet approving. Every motion I made was measured, every tilt of my head, every small movement scrutinized. As I worked, my mind raced. I'd always thought of crossdressing as something private, something secret and thrilling when alone. But now, under Isabella's watchful gaze, it felt like a performance, and not just any performance, one where failure had real consequences. "Posture," she reminded, stepping closer. She guided my back, nudged my shoulders, adjusting the subtle curve in my stance. I couldn't help but notice how close she was, how warm the air felt near her, and how intoxicating her scent was. A strange mix of fear and desire coiled in my chest. Every task brought new lessons. Folding laundry was no longer a mundane chore, it was a study in grace, how to handle fabric without wrinkling it, how to arrange pieces so they seemed effortless yet perfect. I watched myself in the mirror as I worked, and a small voice inside me whispered that this was not just dressing up. This was becoming someone else, or perhaps, discovering a version of myself I hadn't known existed. By the time dinner preparation came, I was moving with more confidence, though still acutely aware of the new sensations coursing through me. The blouse clung lightly to my shoulders, the skirt swayed just so, and even bending to chop vegetables required a careful awareness of modesty. Isabella hovered, offering tips on posture, gestures, and even how to pour wine without spilling. "See, little things make the biggest difference," she murmured, smiling. Her eyes lingered on me, assessing, testing, and sometimes approving. Every time she nodded, a flush of warmth spread through me. I was acutely aware of her control, and a part of me craved it. After dinner, she led me to the hallway mirror. "Time to practice walking like my maid," she said. At first, it was awkward. My heels felt alien, and my legs refused to obey the elegance she demanded. Each step was cautious, measured, a delicate balancing act between grace and fear of making a mistake. "Relax," she advised. "Let it flow naturally. You're not just walking, you're embodying a role." I tried again, and slowly, the movements began to feel instinctive. The rhythm of my steps, the sway of the skirt, the subtle tilt of my chin, it all combined into a new version of myself, one that Isabella seemed to approve of. Her smile was small but triumphant, like a general surveying a soldier who had passed her test. The night deepened, and Isabella's instructions grew more elaborate. She introduced me to cleaning techniques that required precise hand movements, proper folding methods, and even table-setting etiquette that bordered on ritual. Every task was infused with subtle dominance, and I became acutely aware that my identity, my desire to please, and my curiosity about this feminine self were all intertwined. At one point, she handed me a delicate feather duster. "Imagine you're painting the room with elegance," she said. The absurdity of the metaphor made me laugh nervously, but the way she watched me, approving each motion, made the task feel sacred. I was learning far more than chores. I was learning how to exist in a different form, how to inhabit a persona that was both mine and hers. Midway through the evening, Isabella introduced makeup. "You're going to wear it," she said, holding a small compact and brushes. My heart skipped a beat. I had experimented privately before, but never under her direction. Her hands guided mine, teaching the subtle strokes that transformed my face, foundation to smooth my skin, blush to bring warmth, eyeliner to make my eyes expressive. Each layer of makeup felt like shedding my old self. I studied my reflection, noting the delicate changes, the softening of features, the hint of vulnerability mixed with emerging confidence. Isabella's approval was quiet but palpable. "You're learning quickly," she said, eyes glinting with something I couldn't define: pride, desire, control. By the end of the night, I was a different person, physically transformed, emotionally heightened, and acutely aware of the dual life I was beginning to lead. Isabella had crafted every moment with precision: my clothes, my movements, my expression, even the cadence of my voice as I spoke. I had surrendered, yet felt a thrilling empowerment in my obedience. As I cleaned the last corner of the living room, Isabella's hand brushed against mine briefly. "You've done well today," she whispered. My chest tightened at the touch, the warmth spreading through me like a spark. But beneath that spark was a tremor of fear. How far would this go? How much of myself would I lose, or discover, in the process of becoming her perfect maid? The night ended with a lesson in poise and subtlety. Isabella guided me to sit gracefully on the sofa, my legs together, hands folded. "Remember, every gesture matters," she said softly. The mirror reflected someone unfamiliar yet compelling, a girl molded by her desires, my own and hers intertwined in ways I didn't yet understand. And as I drifted into a restless sleep that night, I knew that tomorrow would be more intense. More lessons, more tasks, more transformation, and the constant, thrilling fear of discovery. Isabella had begun shaping me, but how far would she take me? And how far would I let her go? The following morning, the apartment felt different. Every sound seemed amplified: the hum of the refrigerator, the soft tapping of heels on wood floors. I had perfected my movements the night before, but today's tasks carried a weight I couldn't ignore. Isabella had disappeared briefly for work, leaving me alone, but with an unmistakable warning: "Do not deviate from your duties, or you'll regret it." I tried to focus on vacuuming, but every corner of the living room seemed like a stage. My heels clicked nervously, the skirt swishing with each step, and my hands shook slightly as I adjusted the cushions. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. My heart lurched. I wasn't expecting anyone. Isabella's instructions replayed in my mind: no surprises. No mistakes. But the doorbell rang again, insistent. I tiptoed to the peephole and froze. It was her sister, Vanessa, a woman I barely knew, with sharp eyes that seemed to pierce through my carefully maintained facade. Panic rose in my chest. What if she saw me like this? The dress, the heels, the makeup, it was all too much. My fingers fumbled with the latch as I whispered to myself, "Stay calm, stay calm." Vanessa pushed the door open before I could respond. "Hey, thought I'd drop by," she said, stepping inside. My pulse raced. I had no choice but to maintain composure, to continue the role Isabella had carved for me. "Hi, welcome," I stammered, adjusting my posture and forcing a soft, feminine smile. My voice felt alien, higher pitched than normal, yet somehow fitting. Vanessa's eyes swept over me, and I felt exposed. Every detail of my transformation seemed on display: the careful makeup, the neatly styled hair, the subtle sway of my skirt. My chest tightened with both fear and a strange thrill. "You've changed," Vanessa said, her tone teasing but not unkind. "Is Isabella training you or something?" My mind raced. Should I tell the truth? Pretend to be someone else? I opted for a nervous laugh. "Just learning some new skills," I murmured, hoping she wouldn't notice the tremor in my hands. Vanessa raised an eyebrow but didn't press. Instead, she began chatting casually, drifting around the apartment. Every movement I made was careful, dusting, folding, adjusting, trying not to draw attention, trying not to betray the nervous tremor in my heels or the flush in my cheeks. Then it happened. A glass slipped from my fingers as I reached to set a vase on the shelf. It teetered, then crashed to the floor. My heart stopped. Vanessa turned sharply. "I'm fine," I blurted, bending quickly to gather the shards, but my skirt caught on the edge of the table, pulling me into a precarious lean. My balance teetered, and for a terrifying moment, I felt the full vulnerability of my new persona. One misstep and everything, the carefully crafted image, the secrecy, the thrill, would shatter. Vanessa's eyes widened, but she didn't intervene immediately. Instead, she watched, intrigued, as if she knew this was some test of composure. My cheeks burned, adrenaline surged, and my mind screamed, "Survive, stay in character, don't get caught." I regained balance, smoothing my skirt, adjusting my posture, and forcing a small laugh. "Clumsy me," I whispered. Vanessa chuckled, shaking her head. "You're different. But I like it." Her words sent an unexpected thrill through me. Approval, even from someone outside Isabella's control, made the transformation feel real, tangible, intoxicating. Yet the fear remained: if Isabella returned now, or if Vanessa mentioned this to her, the consequences could be severe. Hours passed. Vanessa lingered, teasing me, commenting on my movements, and occasionally asking pointed questions about Isabella's training methods. I played the role flawlessly, but inside, every nerve was alert, every instinct screaming that exposure was imminent. Finally, Vanessa left, but not without one last warning glance. "Keep up the elegance," she said, smirking. "Or I'll check in again." The door clicked shut, leaving me trembling, exhilarated, and terrified all at once. Just when I thought I could breathe, Isabella returned early. My heart raced. Every step she took in the doorway was deliberate, measured. Her eyes scanned the room, pausing on me. "You've improved," she said slowly, a mix of pride and something darker in her voice. But did Vanessa see anything she shouldn't have? I stammered, unsure how to respond. The tension was unbearable. My chest tightened, and I felt the weight of the dual life I was living pressing down. Isabella stepped closer, and suddenly the playful lessons turned into an unspoken dominance. "Tonight," she whispered, her eyes locking with mine, "we take it further." My mind raced. Further? What could be more intense than this? But the thrill, the fear, the desire, it all surged through me. I realized I had crossed a line I couldn't retreat from. The night descended into a new chapter of control, training, and emotional intensity. Isabella introduced new challenges, tasks that required poise under scrutiny, delicate handling of fragile items, and strict adherence to etiquette while maintaining a natural, feminine demeanor. Every moment was a test, every misstep magnified, and every success rewarded with a subtle touch or approving glance. By the end of the night, I was exhausted, exhilarated, and irrevocably transformed. The duality of fear and pleasure, control and surrender, had reached its peak. I was her perfect maid, but inside, a storm of emotions churned: desire, shame, excitement, and anticipation. And then, as I prepared for bed, a sudden sound froze me: the soft click of the front door. Someone was entering, unannounced. My pulse skyrocketed. My heels clicked as I froze, and in that instant, the story left me suspended between exposure and secrecy. Would I be discovered? Could I maintain the delicate balance between my old life and this new, thrilling persona? The answer was uncertain. And as the shadows stretched across the room, I realized that the most dangerous, intoxicating part of my transformation was yet to come. The apartment was silent now, but the tension lingered like a heavy fog. I sat on the edge of the bed, the heels kicked off, skirt slightly rumpled, and makeup smudged from the day's excitement. Every sound made my heart jump: the distant hum of traffic, the soft whisper of the air conditioner, even the faint creak of the floorboards. I replayed the events of the day in my mind, Vanessa's surprise visit, the teetering vase, the delicate tasks Isabella had assigned, and the intense scrutiny of every movement. My mind raced. Could I really maintain this life? Could I keep pretending, obeying, and performing under such pressure? Then I heard it, a subtle click from the living room. Someone was moving, slow and deliberate. My pulse skyrocketed. I froze, staring at the bedroom door, every nerve alert. "Hello," a voice called, calm but with an edge of curiosity. My stomach lurched. Was it Isabella? Or had Vanessa returned? I peeked from behind the door. Shadows shifted near the doorway. Whoever it was, they hadn't seen me yet. My chest tightened. One wrong move, and the carefully constructed image of my transformation could shatter completely. I considered hiding, retreating into the safety of the closet, but something inside me hesitated. There was a thrill in staying, in facing the risk, in testing the limits of my new persona. The duality of fear and excitement churned inside me, leaving me both terrified and strangely exhilarated. A soft laugh echoed from the shadows. "Well, aren't you impressive?" The voice was familiar, too familiar. My heart dropped. It was Isabella. She stepped into the dim light, her eyes scanning the room, then locking onto mine. "You've learned well," she whispered, her tone a mix of approval and dominance. "But perfection is never permanent." The words sent a shiver down my spine. I knew what she meant. Every misstep, every hesitation, every flicker of vulnerability could unravel the delicate balance I had worked so hard to maintain. Isabella's gaze softened for a moment, just enough to make my chest tighten with conflicting emotions, fear, desire, submission, and a strange sense of pride. I had crossed a line I could never go back from, and yet the thrill of being her perfect maid had only just begun. Then, without warning, the bedroom door creaked again. Another presence. I couldn't see who it was, but the tension was unbearable. My breath caught in my throat. Isabella's eyes gleamed. "Looks like tonight's training has an unexpected twist." I froze, heart pounding, as the story ended on that precarious edge. The suspense was palpable, unresolved, leaving me, and the audience, wondering. Who had entered the apartment? Would my secret finally be exposed? And what new challenges awaited me in the hands of Isabella? One thing was certain, my life as her perfect maid had only just begun, and every step from here on out would test the limits of fear, obedience, and desire.